Today, my friends and I started celebrating the Halloween season by going to a haunted farm off in the outskirts of town. I use the term haunted loosely because this place is just a really scaled down theme park that's been in the region for over 20 years. I don't scare easily, so I wasn't expecting much from the visit aside from a bit of lighthearted fun with friends. Who would have thought that after an evening of cheap jump scares and screaming mostly to be polite, I'd find myself sitting in my bed, genuinely shaking in fear. I certainly didn't, yet here I am. All because something followed me home. Whenever a car drives down the street, I catch glimpses of it slowly crawling down my neighbor's house and towards mine, as though toying with me. It all happened because of that damn farm. We arrived at the farm late in the afternoon. It was nice out. Not too hot, not too cold. The farm was pretty neat, though it wasn't overly spooky looking in the daylight. They had built a few old Wild West-styled houses they had decorated with pumpkins and giant spiders, had a few creepy mascots walking around, and sprinkled demonic baby dolls where they saw fit. In the daytime, this place was a playground for kids. I saw more bouncy houses and face painting stations than scary attractions, but I expected things would change once the sun went down. My friends and I headed out to do the corn maze while they were still open, and then headed to the food trucks for dinner. By the time we were done eating, it was finally dark out, and the toddlers had sprouted into teenagers. As expected, the park indeed looked a lot creepier at night. They had turned on their fog machines and colored lights to give the place a surreal atmosphere. The mascots had changed their makeup from sort of menacing but still friendly to sort of demonic, with a few vampires and masked witches thrown in for good measure. It was fine. Not all that scary, though. I'm not trying to make myself out to be some unshakable badass or anything, but I honestly don't scare all that easily. I'm not really susceptible to things I know aren't real. Creepy music and plastic hatchets just don't work on me. You could blame my time hanging around the creepy part of the internet for my desensitization, but the truth is, I've always been pretty numb to horror. I'm more afraid of practical things, like being stuck in a line for a haunted hayride for half an hour with a bunch of rowdy 13-year-old kids screaming profanities to try and outshock one another. Then there's splinters and disgusting porta potties, the first and last of which I experienced at the farm. Ugh. My friends and I walked around and tried out the different attractions. We did the aforementioned hayride, the witch's coven, and the demonic funhouse, which was fun for all the wrong reasons. See, the funhouse was pretty tame, all things considered. You walk your way through the world's most straightforward maze, and from time to time, a creepy clown appears out of nowhere and kind of shuffles behind you, and follows you for a bit. I can see how that might be a bit unsettling to kids, but these clowns were all actors, and they weren't allowed to actually touch anyone, so there really wasn't anything to be afraid of. That didn't stop this one chick from breaking down outside the attraction, however. This 20-something gal totally lost it. She was sobbing into her boyfriend's arms, and I couldn't help but laugh as we walked past her. Sorry, but if you can't handle a clown standing next to you for half a second, maybe you shouldn't be going into a demonic funhouse. Just saying. Check yourself before you emotionally wreck yourself. It was getting late, and we still had one major attraction to go. According to our map, it was the scariest of them all. 4 chainsaws out of 4. Having heard screams of abject terror coming from that side of the park, I was really looking forward to seeing what all the fuss was about. Along the way, my friend pointed out a cemetery with a half-opened gate and not a soul in line to go in. There had been a 30-minute wait for all the other attractions, but this one was as still as a grave. Pun intended. "Should we go in?" she asked. "Might as well," I replied. The gate squealed as we opened it the rest of the way. Oh boy. It appeared as though someone had left the fog machine on overnight. The curtains of smoke were so thick I couldn't even see my own feet. I grabbed the friend behind and in front of me just so we wouldn't lose one another in the mist. That's how dense it was. I didn't really like the cemetery. For one thing, there wasn't much to it. A few tombstones here and there, a crypt, some gargoyles. But overall, it was just annoying. I kept tripping on exposed tree roots and fake plastic bones. It was a pain in the ass. But it was worth it for the one genuine scare I got all night. As I was turning a corner, I felt something grab my leg. I let out my only authentic scream all evening because I had no idea we weren't alone in the cemetery. The fog had done a great job of hiding this guy in a pitch-black morph suit crawling around on all fours. I only saw him because as I screamed, I also flapped my arms around like a drunk duck trying to take off, and the motion dispersed the fog for a second. The guy crawled away and disappeared behind a tombstone. My friends laughed and laughed and laughed. "Whatever," I mumbled. "Wasn't even that scary." We found our way out of the cemetery after that, and headed to the main attraction. The wait was longer than any other attraction at the farm, because it was allegedly the scariest of them all. The cream of the crop. Hell, after the scare I had gotten at the cemetery, my expectations were pretty high for this one. And, it was fine. I mean, there were guys in pretty realistic pig masks running after us with chainsaws, but even in the dark, I could tell the blades weren't actually moving. I didn't feel like I was in danger. Well, aside from the very real danger of possibly losing all blood circulation in my arm when one pig man jumped in front of us, and my friend grabbed me so tightly my fingers went numb. She screamed. I just kind of stared at the pig man, unfazed. I half expected him to tell me to feed the pig. "Not tonight, buddy. Not tonight." We drove home after that and chatted about our favorite parts of the night. "You got so scared in the cemetery," taunted Jules. I huffed. "That dude just startled me is all." The car went silent. "What guy?" someone in the back seat asked. "The dude in the morph suit," I answered. "Huh?" "He was crawling on the ground." "I didn't see him." I shrugged. "It was foggy. You probably missed him." We all went back to chatting. Eventually, I dropped everyone off at their places. I wasn't too tired by the time I got home, so I booted up my computer and uploaded the photos we had taken that night. Everything was pretty normal, until we got to the cemetery. Or rather, after the cemetery. The morph suit guy was in the background of all the other photos I took, which was really strange to me, since I thought the mascots were supposed to stay in their attractions. They had these lame bios for their mascots on the website, so I looked him up just to see. He wasn't listed anywhere. I felt a small knot in my stomach, but eventually laughed it off. There were plenty of guests in costumes. Maybe this was an annoying teenager having fun. At this point, I thought I could hear a squirrel or something scratching at my bedroom window, but I couldn't spare a glance. I was too busy staring dumbfounded at the website. I had clicked on the venue map link. I noticed the distinct lack of a cemetery on the map. The thought did occur to me that this was all intentional on part of the people who were running the farm. A great way to get one last scare out of their guests after they had gone home. It was as easy as not drawing a cemetery on their little cartoon map, As simple as not including it on the list of attractions. As easy as omitting one spooky mascot from their character bios. I wish that were the case. I wish that, when I looked out the window, I hadn't seen the figure in the morph suit staring back at me, and then quickly skittering backwards across the yard and up to my neighbor's roof. I wish he had stopped crawling nearer whenever I blink or look away. Every time I focus on my screen to write another line, I catch him in my peripheral vision. He's at the window right now. I give him a quick glance. He runs away. I can't help but worry what'll happen when I close my eyes and fall asleep. I think I'll find that out soon though, because I'm just so tired now, and I can't seem to keep my eyes open much longer.